This video is made possible by Practical Defense Systems, the best online security training at the lowest prices. You can start your security career today online at pdsclasses.com. Check them out. Hi, I'm Joel Persinger. I'm the Gun Guy. Thank you very much for all of your support of GunGuyTV. I'm super grateful for everything that you do, so please don't stop. What I'm doing is sitting on a park bench in the middle of, well, kind of semi-nowhere. I just got done with about a 5.5-mile hike, and I needed to get an interview done, so we set up the mobile thing here. I'm testing it out today because this is what we'll use on our ranch property when we're in northern Arizona, so that I can stay in touch with you whenever I need to do an interview. Today I've got Sean Maloney from Second Call Defense. He's going to join me in just a couple of minutes, and hopefully it'll work. I guess we'll find out. Sean is a great guy. He's an attorney, and he's going to be one of my industry experts here, which is really cool, because what we haven't had is somebody that can talk to us specifically about defending ourselves with a firearm and the legal requirements of that, and then also the pitfalls of it. He's going to talk about that not only from a concealed carry perspective, but also from the perspective of what happens if you defend yourself in the home. Now, Second Call Defense is a concealed carry sort of self-defense coverage company. I've been a member for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years or something. I'm very happy with them, and I like them a lot. And so this is one of the reasons I wanted to have them on, because I know they know what they're doing. I know they do a great job, and I know that their coverage is outstanding. I can highly recommend them. You will find a link in the description. Now, before we go any further, let me let you know that you can also support GunGuyTV, and you can get more content than you can get anywhere else if you join GunGuyTV Crew. That's where I post things pretty much every day, Monday through Friday, which is much more than I have the time to do here on GunGuyTV on YouTube and Rumble and the other places. So if you'd like to see some exclusive content you can't get anywhere else, make sure you join GunGuyTV Crew today. You'll find a link in the description. All right, let's go talk to Sean. Sean, thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate it. You're the first person I've spoken to, actually had on the show, from a self-defense coverage company. So it's a joy to have you on. Thanks for coming on.
Well, I want to thank you for having me on. I've been excited. I've been watching you for years, actually. So I know a lot about you, and you probably don't know so much about me.
So first, tell me a little bit about you, and then tell me something about Second Call Defense.
I've been a criminal defense attorney for going on 30 years, and I got involved with firearms, I would say probably 15 years ago, and I've been dedicating my practice to self-defense and to people who are forced to use firearms in self-defense probably for a little bit longer than that. I represent people with federal violations, with state violations of law, concealed carry, and then of course with Second Call Defense, anybody who is forced to use their firearm in self-defense. And it happens quite a bit more than people realize, because when you brandish a firearm or tell somebody I have a gun, you're actually using your firearm in self-defense. And that's why statistically, and I'm sure you're aware of this, anywhere between 500,000 and 3 million times a year, Americans use a firearm in self-defense. And people always ask me, why such a wide range? Well, the vast majority of people who brandish never call the police, never say anything. The incident's over, the bad guy runs away, and they reholster their gun, and they say, woof, I'm glad I got out of that one, and they go on with their life.
And you can confirm this, please, Sean. It strikes me that one way or the other, you're going to have some legal battles ahead of you, aren't you?
Well, and Joel, you're right. I can tell you that the vast majority of our cases are brandishing cases. And some prosecutors in some states will pursue those just as vehemently as they'll, if someone pulled the trigger and shot somebody. Generally speaking, someone ends up getting charged with felonious assault, or something like that with a firearm, when truly those aren't the facts of the case. When you draw a firearm and display that and brandish that in self-defense, you're doing it because you have an affirmative defense of self-defense. But even though it's just pulling a firearm and saying, hey, leave me alone, or you don't want any, all of a sudden you get a phone call, you're charged with felonious assault, which could be 10 years in prison, $100,000 bond just to get you out. Wow. And really that's kind of how Second Call Defense started. I'm also a entering instructor, had been teaching basic pistol for years, and a young gentleman, 22 years old, that I had just instructed about 2 months before that, got his concealed carry permit, was attacked, and he brandished. And he decided to drive to the police station because he was near the police station and lived there his whole life. And the true bad guy called and blamed our client for everything that the bad guy did. And so when my client jumped out of his truck to run into the police department to tell them what just happened, the police were rushing out of the side door to go get this kid, my client, for brandishing a firearm. And so I got a call at Friday evening, and the kid was in tears. I really didn't understand what he was talking about, but being a defense attorney, I said, if you've been arrested, hand the phone to a police officer, and that's what happened. And the police officer described what happened and that he had been charged with felonious assault. And so now it's probably 6 o'clock in the evening. He'll be in the Butler County, Ohio jail for the weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and he'll be out Monday morning. And I knew that he would be a changed person if he had to serve that time. And so his brand new bride with her brand new baby and I went door to door for hours until we collected $10,000 cash for a bond, and
Wow.
then and paid that. And what people don't realize is that bond money, Joel's gone. You don't get it back. In the state of Ohio and in most states, but Illinois and Kentucky are different. That you get your bond money back because you pay it to the clerk, but that's $10,000. He's out at that young age. So finally, we got everything to go away, and everything was dismissed. He lost his job because of the things that were in the paper. I tried to expunge it, but in Ohio, felony charges, even though he was acquitted and it never even proceeded to trial, can't be expunged for a year. So now he's out of work, interviewing for jobs, and having to tell each prospective employer why he was charged with felonious assault. And then
even though he was never convicted of anything, just the fact that he was arrested and charged.
Exactly. And when at the end of this whole case, I said to myself, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be protection for people, because I was constantly representing concealed carry holders in the area, and most of them didn't have any money. And I'm the last person, truthfully, to turn somebody away that's been wronged, I think, especially with firearms and their constitutional rights, just because they don't have the money. And I wanted our second call of defense members to have everything that a client should have when he goes and sees an attorney. And that's essentially how we created second call defense.
Well, a couple of questions pop to mind just from what the story that you just told. One is, how often is it the case that he who calls the cops first wins? Because what you just described was this kid who was innocent, but the other guy called the cops first, and now they're after the kid. I mean, how important is it to be the first one to call the police?
Joel, that's a great question, because that's something that, as an attorney, that I've done for years, because what I've found and what I've realized, as generally speaking, in the vast majority of times, the person that makes the first telephone call wins, at least in the beginning. So I always encourage people, even though I don't want you talking to the police officer without an attorney present, but if you're forced to brandish your firearm, I always say you got to call the non-emergency hotline or number for the police if you know it. If not, dial 911 and explain to them what happened. And
whether you fired, that applies whether you actually fired a round or not, right? If you just drew the weapon and the bad guy runs away, are you saying you should still call the police even so?
Oh, absolutely, without exception, because you touched a firearm, you drew a firearm, and there's a couple things that happen. Somebody's in fear of death or serious bodily injury or harm when that firearm's out of the holster pointing at somebody. And number two, you can be convicted of felonious assault for the actions of pointing a firearm at somebody if they decide that you didn't do it in self-defense. So when you're facing felony charges, years in jail, and a lot of money out of your pocket, you want to make sure that you make the first phone call to the police, explain to them what happened, and then if you remember, call second call defense, and where an attorney is going to be available 24 hours a day to take care of everything for you from the beginning. And like I said, kind of do it on a regular basis, far more than people would realize.
But does this kind of situation just apply to concealed carry and defending yourself in that kind of public scenario, or does it apply when you're in your house and home as well?
That's another great question. And believe it or not, and I was shocked to learn this, that we as concealed carry holders and firearms owners, we use self-defense in the home more than we do outside of the home. And I never would have thought that would have been true, but statistically speaking, it happens more often than not, especially pulling the trigger inside of your home. And so it's very important. It's just as important that you have the protection inside your home as outside your home, even though the castle doctrine could be there to protect you, even though you don't have a duty to retreat out of your homes in most cases, still it provides you with the presumption that you properly use your firearm in self-defense. But I always remind people that's a rebuttable presumption, and the prosecutor is there to prove that you didn't use your firearm in self-defense and you improperly used self-defense even in your own home, and then everything starts all over again. I've represented many people that have had that incident occur in their home. I just had two actually in the state of Ohio where I was able to be the attorney on the cases. One was in February in Columbus, Ohio, outside a gas station by a food truck, and another one was in a pizza shop in New Carlisle, Ohio. And they both made the NRA Magazine's Armed Citizen, but those were the first two that we've had in 10 years that actually didn't take place in someone's home or around their home.
Even if the shooting was justified, even if you are not prosecuted criminally, how drastically does it affect a citizen's life if they have to defend themselves with a firearm?
There's a couple things to consider. The first thing is the stigma, how you're treated by your friends, your coworkers, and people that either don't really agree with your decision to carry a firearm or the fact that you had to. And then something more important is internally. And one of my clients that was involved in the shooting a few weeks ago, he did everything he had a legal right to do, and probably without a doubt, if he wouldn't have, he would have been dead. But psychologically and emotionally, he hasn't accepted the fact and can't accept the fact yet that he took a human life. Even though in his mind he knows that that it was him or the other guy, but he just has a hard time dealing with that and accepting that. And one thing that that Second Call Defense offers is psychological counseling, up to 40 sessions with a psychiatrist or a psychologist of your choice. And I did that because over the years as a criminal defense attorney, I've seen the toll that defending yourself or taking another life or severely injuring another person has on people. And some people can't deal with that, and probably everybody needs help, some way to deal with it. So that's kind of one of the untalked about wounds of a self-defense shooting or using lethal force in self-defense is, okay, you've done it, you're alive for the next 40 years. Now, how do you get out of bed every morning knowing that you took a human life? And you're always going to question yourself as a good person with a gun, because that's what we are. Human beings, for the most part, innately are good people. And things like that are going to bother people. And of course, we've seen what happens when that section of society don't care anymore. But for the most part, as a law-abiding citizen that takes another human life, some people can't get over it and probably never will. And that's always a consideration to make, because you hear people at the range, or I see people on websites and then chat rooms and stuff, and the keyboard commandos that they can kill anybody and do anything. I always say, be careful what you wish for, because you got to deal with that.
Okay, so there's a couple of questions I have here. You just mentioned something. The keyboard commandos. People have a tendency in social media to spout off. I'm in my 60s, okay? So I remember a time when if you were mouthy, you got a fist in your mouth, and then you learned not to be mouthy. The reason I bring it up is because now people feel free to be mouthy like crazy on the internet. Now a person has got a concealed carry permit, or they have a gun at home, and they're mouthy on Facebook, and they're mouthy on Twitter, and they're mouthy here, and they're mouthy there, and they're mouthy the other place, and they spout off and say things because they play too many video games perhaps. And, I'm not picking on any particular person. I just see it all the time because I'm a YouTuber, okay? Right. So I see it in the comments all the time. And now they get in a defensive shooting. Does that internet behavior come back to haunt them in court?
I wish I could blow up every computer that's on the face of the earth that my clients have.
The answer then is a resounding yes, obviously. Yes, okay.
Because the first thing I do when I get a phone call and I decide to take a case, or before I decide to take a case, I'm on a computer and my admin's doing an internet search. They're looking Facebook, they're looking Twitter, they're everywhere. And because the prosecution is going to do the same things. And I always tell people, be careful what you put out there, because you can never get it back. And so, and to be in front of a jury trying to explain to them that how your client had no choice but to take another human life. There was no opportunity to retreat. And then all of a sudden have the prosecutor stand up with page after page after page of quote unquote badass comments that he's going to take care of business and he's going to kill somebody and you better not mess with me. Almost to the point where you seem predisposed to be doing that. And we all know it's not, but again, whether you're serious or not, you said it, you typed it, and you can't take it back any more than you could take the bullet back.
Well, that's the other thing to remember too. You know, I would suspect as an attorney, you would tell people, and we'll get into this in just a second, don't talk to the police. But one of the problems with talking to the police is, you know, when I was a young cat, police used to write down your comments. Now it's in your voice,
right?
And it's a video of you saying it. And so it's very hard for you to refute something that you said that they can actually play back and the jury can watch you say it and hear you say it. So it's very, very important that you are very particular about what comes out of your mouth and what you put on the internet. All right. So let's say I go out and God forbid, I go out and I have to shoot somebody. I pray and hope that never happens. And I hope I go my entire life and never cause anybody that much harm. But let's say that I did. And let's say that, the district attorney, which is what we have here in California, looks at the case and goes, nah, there's nothing there. There's no there. Or they try to prosecute, but I'm found not guilty. I'm exonerated. Is that the end of it? For me?
We like to think so, but now you have something called, the civil side of justice. And remember, if you're acquitted, that means that they couldn't prove that you did not use self-defense beyond a reasonable doubt or highest standard. But now all of a sudden, someone decides to sue you for the death of their son, their father, their daughter, or whoever it is, or the severe injuries. And so they take it to civil court where the burden of proof is beyond a preponderance of the evidence, or simply more likely than not. Tip the scales a little bit the opposite way and you're done. So really your battle just begins after the criminal portion is over, because after the acquittal, you feel that sign of relief, but now you have to worry about having your wages garnished for the rest of your life, losing your home, draining your savings account again. And so often the civil side is the worst side, because then the prosecutor can decide not to prosecute. The grand jury can no bill and decide that it was self-defense, but that doesn't preclude somebody who was wronged or think they're wronged to file a civil action against you for monetary damages and to quote unquote punish you that way.
What does this cost? If you don't have any insurance and you got to just write the check and you got to defend yourself in criminal court, you got to pay the attorneys to do it, and you have to defend yourself in civil court. What's this? Let me grab the table. I'm sitting on a park bench here. All right, let me grab the table. Go ahead. What does this cost?
Generally speaking, if you have a concealed carry permit, and I just put that modifier on it, and we're using self-defense as a defense, and we're assuming that self-defense was properly used, even if you're arrested and charged at that point in time with an attorney immediately, you're looking at probably $30,000 to $50,000. And then if there's questions as to what happened and why it happened, and there's a prior relationship, you knew the guy you shot or something like that, then it gets, you're going to get close to $100,000, easy pretty quickly. In fact, our first client was in Santa Clarita County, California. He had to use a firearm in self-defense against his neighbor in the Los Angeles area. Basically, I couldn't find an attorney that would take less than $80,000 one payment up front right now.
Wow. And that's just the criminal stuff, right? That doesn't include being sued.
Absolutely. And then you got to worry about bond money, your 10% bond money. And then all of a sudden, so you get sued, and you're looking at, for your civil defense attorney, you're looking at another $30,000, $40,000, or $50,000 for the civil attorney. And that's if you wipe the sweat off your brow and you win. If you lose and you're found liable for any part of that, then it's up to whoever's on the jury to determine how much you're going to pay. And I mean, we all know about the McDonald's $7 million cup of coffee from 20 years ago. Oh, yeah. We still know about the lawsuits and the unbelievable jury verdicts against millions and millions of dollars that true nobody could ever afford to pay, but you're under that judgment for the rest of your life. And There's very aggressive plaintiffs' attorneys that have nothing but an office that constantly follows you around and garnishes your wages, takes every bit of lottery winnings you have, sells your cars, and does whatever they can to get as much money as they possibly can back for their client. So like I said, it begins, and you're looking at, $1 million in damages, not unheard of at all. And again, that's going to change whether if I'm in your neighborhood in San Diego, maybe a little bit different. Certainly it's probably different in San Francisco, but it's going to be totally different in Cincinnati, Ohio, but you never know. And you never know what's been in the news, what did that juror just see to prompt them, to force you to write a bigger check. So
if you don't have a couple of $100,000 sitting around, just sitting around, you could exhaust that just in the court battle, regardless of whether you lose in a civil suit and then owe money in some judgment. I mean, we're just talking about court costs and attorneys or whatever. You could burn up that $200,000 or $250,000 in just court costs. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, you can do that, and probably quicker than you think. And then I point out to people when I talk about second call defense and what we offer, and I used to say, who has $100,000 around for bond? Then I say, but even if you do, Joel, if you have all that money squirreled away under your mattress and you have lots of money, why do you want to waste your money? Why not pay for second call defense, pay a monthly membership fee, and let me spend my money? Especially when you're looking at bond. People don't realize that if you have to pay 10% bond, you have to pay, say it's $50,000 or $100,000 to stay out of jail while you're defending yourself. If you have the money to do that, when you pay the bondsman, you're not getting that back. That's their fee.
Nope. I was a bondsman.
Yep.
Okay, I can verify that. I was a bail bondsman in the state of California. I've written a lot of bonds. Whatever that fee is, it's an insurance business. You're buying an insurance bond, and so the bondsman makes the money by collecting the fee, and then the underwriter underwrites that bond. So if you have $1 million bond, it's 10% typically. I mean, sometimes you can get a deal, but sometimes not. So you're looking at $100,000. If it's a $50,000 bond, you're looking at $5,000. So you can figure 10% of whatever that is. And, when you are in a shooting, those bond amounts, that bond schedule is not cheap. And just when you go to jail, there's a schedule of already written that's decided already. This offense is that much money, and this offense is that much money. And if you want to sit in jail for 72 hours or until your hearing 2 weeks from now or whenever, then the judge can adjust that down, maybe, but the judge can also adjust that up. And so there's a little bit of a risk there. And he's exactly right. That money you've expensed now, that's the bondsman's money. You're not going to get that back. The only way you get it back is if you post the entire amount. So if you got $1 million bond and you want to go down to the county and give them $1 million, and you show up to court, they'll give you the $1 million back. That's why they're a bail bondsman, so that you don't have to give $1 million. You only have to give $100K, but you're not going to get the $100K back. And that's basically how that works. So you mentioned second call defense and what you guys do. By the way, Sean, I'd love to have you, if you don't mind, if you're willing to, I'd love to have you come back on the show periodically and give us an update on how these things work, because this is stuff that's invaluable for folks, particularly, even longtime gun owners don't know a lot of these things. And you having been in court many times and defended a lot of folks on this, your knowledge and experience is invaluable. What exactly does second call defense do? What does it offer? And why is it important for people to have that kind of coverage?
Well, like I mentioned, when we started talking about bond money, even if you have the $10,000 or $15,000 or $20,000 for bond, why use your own money and lose it forever? Second call defense provides upfront money for bond, and will pay that money for you, and we don't reimburse us for that. When we spend it, it's gone. So I always say it's coverage from trigger to trial. If you're forced to use your firearm in self-defense, the first thing I do is always say, I don't like you to call 911, but I'll provide some training and some information on how to handle that 911 call and make that call. And then as soon as you hang up from there and hang up, call second call defense, where an attorney is going to be on the other end almost immediately, and they're going to walk you through everything, calm you down, find out what happened. First thing I say is, what happened? And I ask that several times, and so they can get everything in the front of their mind as to what happened. And then if there's an investigation, the police are there. I've stayed on the phone with a second call defense member the whole time the police were there. The phone's been passed back and forth. I'm providing legal information, speaking to both my client and the police officer. Then at that point in time, if the police decided that you're going to be arrested and you're arrested, we do quite a few things immediately. First thing we do is I get to your emergency contact list and I contact your wife, your father, your mother, whoever it is that we're emergency contact, explain to them what's going on. So when you do come home at night, they're not wondering, where you are. And certainly I've had that happen to clients before. And then as soon as I do that, find out if there's a bond schedule, and immediately, as soon as legally possible, we'll get you bonded out. And then at that point in time also, I start researching for a list of probably the top 3 criminal defense attorneys that can handle your case. And so I get that short list. And more often than not, if my member's been arrested, and they have been in the past, not convicted, but they're arrested, they can't choose an attorney because their one phone call was a second call offense. Mm-hmm. And so I'll get you your attorney and we'll get started. And then if you know somebody better, or you would rather have another attorney, the attorney-client relationship is 100% yours. All we do is pay for it. You go out and you get the attorney you want, and I'll be happy to vet that attorney for you if that's something that needs to be done. And then we pay the retainer fee, ongoing defense cost, expert witness fees, and whatever else that's going to come up on the criminal end. And then beyond that, you're acquitted, like our example earlier. At that point in time, if you're sued civilly, then the civil defense protection kicks in. It will cover you for defending yourself in trial. And then if there's an award issued against you, the second call defense will also go forward and pay that.
Does this apply to just firearms, or if I defend myself with something else, like a knife or something, does it apply to that too?
Well, this is a special episode. I don't know if you realize this. We haven't announced it yet, but for the first time, I'm announcing it right now. Second call defense covers the use of all legal weapons. Our marketing starts Monday on that. But I guess it just started right now on a Friday, and whenever you play this or show this, but we cover all legal weapons. This just brings up something that just dawned on me. We've talked about California and Ohio. Are there any parts of the United States where second call defense you can't be a member because you can't do anything there? It's kind of a strange answer, but the state in New York State and Washington and maybe Oregon now, they prohibit the sale of our services. So you can't buy it if you're a resident of say, New York State. You can't buy it. But if you're not from New York State and somehow you legally are using a firearm in New York State, we still cover you. So we cover all 50 states, but there are some states, 3 states that the government isn't going to let you have any protection. Why? I don't know why.
Does that just apply to second call defense, or is that any? Because there's a number of companies that do this. Is it all of them?
That's all of us.
Is that right? Wow. Mm-hmm. Wow. These states just won't trying to rook the poor, honest, law-abiding gun owner out of any legal protection they can get. That's absolutely awful. Oh my gosh.
What's funny is those same states are screaming for laws to require people to have liability insurance if they own a gun. Because they won't
let you have it.
Exactly.
What? Jeez. All right. Well, Sean, you have officially, hold on, I'm going to bless you here. I'm not Catholic. It's the best I can do. Hominy domino hibiscus. I guess I don't know any Latin, so I just made that up. You are now blessed as one of the official GunGuy TV area experts, and we'll have you back on again. Thank you very much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Your knowledge and experience is invaluable, particularly for me as a concealed carry teacher, but for the average gun owner, I guess I'm one of those too. And certainly for new gun owners, it's super important that we know what we can do and what we can't do and what the pitfalls are. So we'll definitely have you back. Thanks for coming.
Well, thank you for having me again. It's an honor. I've been watching you and I've known you for years. So you've been a topic of many dinner table discussions, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you.
Hey, I'm a dinner table discussion. Does that make me a household word? God, I hope not.
Well, you could walk into the house now and we'd sit down and have dinner with you.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. We can do that anytime. All right, sir. Have a wonderful week and stay safe, okay?
Hey, you too. Thank you.
All righty. Bye-bye. Thank you very much for watching the whole interview. I'm very grateful that you did that, and I'm really grateful that this worked. I was kind of wondering, to be honest with you. I was concerned, but it did. It worked. The internet connection worked great. Everything's running great, so you'll see more of them this way. It gives me an opportunity to get out and about and out of the house. You know, it's a good thing to get out and enjoy life. And so even if you're a YouTuber and you do as many interviews as I do, you got to get outdoors and enjoy life. I can get some exercise and so on. I encourage you to do that. So we'll do more of them this way. I'll just make sure that the internet connection is really good before I set it all up. Have a great week. Thank you again for all of your support. I'm super grateful for everything you do. And by the way, I am going to start doing some more gun videos because now I'm beginning to have more time to get to the range, and I've got a lot of stuff to review that I'm kind of backlogged on. So be looking for those starting next week, and we'll continue to do these kinds of interview informative videos for you as well. Wherever you go, whatever you do in the meantime, be safe.